Greetings everyone and welcome back to bannersonthewall.wordpress.com for this Banners on the Road audio special from Saturday the 10th of February, NIHL National Division game between the Swindon Wildcats and the Leeds Knights. Final score in this one, Swindon Wildcats 1, Leeds Knights 0, the lone goal of this game coming in the third period from Gael Lebwele. So apologies this is out a bit late, as I explained on Wednesday night's What's Current stream. Life got a little bit in the way in terms of recording on this one. So we are looking back a few days and I'm trying to dig out of my memory exactly what happened on this one, but we're going to try our best. I saw a few people say about this game that the sides cancelled each other out. I'm not 100% certain that's entirely true. The one thing both teams did look was not physically, but maybe a little bit mentally fatigued. This was understandable for Swindon, of course, 2 days removed from losing in the semi-final of the National Cup in overtime against Milton Keynes. I'm sorry, Cats fans, for having to mention it. And Leeds have just had a bit of wonky form recently. It happens to all good sides. You cannot be perfect from the first minute in September to the last minute in April, although Leeds certainly do try. But they've looked a little bit, not out of sorts, but like they're huffing and puffing a bit, that the stamina of the long season is starting to get to them a little bit. So this game, 1-0, in some ways is a very fair reflective score of what happened, because what we got for the most part was defensive security and solidity on both sides, and just a lack of creativity going forward. And I think this is because when you are tired, you retreat to what you know. When you're mentally fatigued, you don't try to upset the apple cart. You go back to what you're aware of. For Swindon, this was a case of kind of moving the puck around. For Leeds, this was moving the puck around and trying to go through when they couldn't go around. And ultimately, both teams' defences just read it very well. I've said on record a few times that this season, Rennie Marr is a much better netminder than he was last year. 22-23 was an off year for Rennie. This year he has been superb. And coming up against a netminder like Sam Gospel, who is consistently the best netminder in the National Division, made for a really good old-fashioned goalie duel. Both keepers superb, both making a string of good saves. One in particular for Gospel, and I think it was off Lebwele, and apologies if this one was wrong, but was arguably maybe a little bit too far across to his left and still managed to flick out the pad, kick the puck away with his right pad and control his rebound to going into a spot where nobody was, rather than kicking it off of anybody. That's not to say there weren't chances in both directions here. Both sides had power play opportunities, but the penalty kill was much better on both occasions. It should be said as well, the Knights' penalty kill during this game, I mean, this is the first time of me watching them with my own eyes for quite some time, rather than just watching them on video or on stream. But boy, that penalty kill unit is something to behold, especially when Mac Howlett is allowed to break out and is allowed to kind of turn on the jets. But ultimately, it was just going to take either a moment of magic or a moment of misery, as I've said in the past, and the goal comes out of nowhere. We're getting ahead of ourselves though. First period, even for the most part, I think Swindon arguably edged it. The beginning of the second period then saw Leeds be much more intentful and have a bit more purpose in their attack, certainly in the early stages of the second period. In some ways, though, the power plays really didn't help either side because they just weren't able to connect on passes properly. Ideas were not quite coming off as they should have done. I think by the time we got to the 40-minute point, though, yes, the game was even. And maybe it's because I was standing around Swindon fans, but it felt like Swindon were just about edging this. And more just, purely the only metric there is your shot count. But, all in all, it just felt that Swindon just had a little bit more about them. They certainly were playing in a really, really aggressive forecheck, which appears to have been a really helpful way to kind of put the Knights a little bit off their game. But yeah, ultimately, it just kind of sort of hit a point where all the things that both of these sides would have normally tried, just for whatever reason, didn't come off. There was a point in the I think it was early in the third period. In fact, I'm pretty certain it is, where the Knights were passing the puck around. It was either the third or the second, but they were passing the puck around, and Mac Howlett was just on his own, free in space, and the puck just comes towards him, and everybody knows if Howlett connects on this, then it's going in one location and one location only, and it's the back of the net, and the puck comes across and he swings and he makes contact and his stick just snaps. Just stick explodes on impact, shot dribbles away, and that just kind of felt how it had been really for both sides for the most part. I think that certainly the comparison was the last time I was in Swindon before this, which was the game that the Wildcats won 3-0 against Telford, which was not very good. It wasn't very entertaining. Neither side played particularly well, and Swindon just sort of pushed their way past a little bit to get that important win. This game was actually pretty decent. It's two sides who in this division are at the top end for a reason. They've got very, very good rosters and actually play very, very well as a collective unit. You can see why one is first and one is third in this division. There was just something that neither side could quite, it's like fumbling under the bed for your plug socket to plug your phone in a hotel. You know it's there and you're getting pretty close, but you're not quite getting it all the way into the socket in the wall, as it were. And then out of nowhere, the goal actually goes in the third period. Face off in the Leeds defensive zone, and I don't remember 100% off the top of my head. And it's not very clear from the highlights itself, but the puck just sits up out of nowhere from Glenn Billing having won the face off, and Gail Lebwele steps in out through the face off circle and just smacks it as hard as he could, and in it goes, pretty much in front of me from where I was standing. So I got a really good view of the goal. And just a really, really solid goal. Lebwele had one of those nights. He had them in Basingstoke, and he's had them for Swindon as well, where it's a lot of effort and a lot of hustle, and for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to come off. And then out of nowhere, he just hit the puck at the perfect speed, at the perfect angle, and it found the back of the net. And that's all you can ask for in that case from him on that one. Lovely goal. And then from there, actually, the one thing that the Swindon did really well was because obviously they went and pushed for a second goal, but when it was the game was starting to turn and Leeds were starting to necessarily increase their pressure, the Wildcats did a really good job of just managing the game out. Very, very solid defensively at the back. Frustrated Leeds, didn't give them the opportunity to put the puck into the areas that they wanted it to. And ultimately, 1-0 is obviously, it was a tight game. It was a close game. It was a good game. But certainly those last 5 minutes, Leeds didn't have an answer to what Swindon gave them. Noah McMullen gets man of the match for Leeds, which is fair enough. A defenseman or the netminder getting the man of the match in a 1-0 game. McMullen was pretty solid all night. I think certainly I think he was one of the players who stood out more for Leeds. I wouldn't have blamed them for giving it to Sam Gospel, although it feels like Sam Gospel could get man of the match pretty much every game. And in Swindon, he's got a shutout. Of course, Rennie Marr was going to get man of the match. I did wonder whether to give it to Lebwele for that one. The bigger issue really coming out of this one for Swindon was, of course, the injury to Aaron Nell. He sat out Sunday night's game against Milton Keynes, which was, as dead a rubber as you could possibly get for the Wildcats. They weren't very fussed about that one at all by the feel of it, still licking their wounds from Thursday evening. But certainly, as an overall team performance on Saturday evening, they really put their backs and their hearts and their souls into it to give a response to the disappointment of Thursday. Games since Swindon is also as well for post all the refurb after the flooding, looks a lot nicer. A few more permanent bits in and bits and pieces, so it certainly feels very good. Would still be nice if any of the hand dryers worked in the toilets, but you can't have everything. And who am I to complain about the state of a rink having spent so long sitting around in Basingstoke? Either way, this is every Swindon game I've been to this year. Swindon have won. I've now been to 3 games since being back at the link, of which they've shut out the opposition in the last 2 games. So I've been reliably informed that I am allowed back at the moment. So that's certainly a good one. But yeah, Leeds, it was one to lick their wounds. They responded pretty handily after the fact. So on the Sunday with a 6-0 shutout win over Telford. So you can't be perfect. No team is perfect. Not even Leeds, who still are the hot favourites really to win the National Division. Either way, both sides move on. We'll see what happens this upcoming weekend, as will I. I'll be back on the road for the next game in this long journey that I've been on. bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, one source for all things related to the NIHL. Check out all the bits and pieces we've got there, as well as Wednesday nights over on the Banners on the Wall Facebook page for the BOTW What's Current stream. You're the first and the best live show that covers all things from across the 5 divisions of the NIHL. You'll see there on YouTube. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe, and so long till next time.